Perseverance is a seed planted in the hearts of those foolish enough to believe they can. And as a child, I was nothing more than fertile soil, given the opportunity to blossom whatever was given to me. But being born into generational poverty, raised on the wrong side of town, being indoctrinated with stereotypes of who I should and could become. Those types of things can harden your soil, strip you of all of your nutrients. But you see, my mother, she planted a seed of perseverance in me when I was young, and those roots spread deep, allowed me to see far more of who I could be. Unfortunately, as my hardening soil began to cling, as I grew older, it started choking out all the hopes of possibility that grew within me, dreams of intrigue. But my family, God, and AVID nurtured me, watered my soil so that way it could breathe, watered my soul so that way I could be, provided with opportunity to continue to dream, provided me with the tools needed to allow my garden to bloom. What my mama gave me and what God instilled in me, AVID cared for, and now this seed has sprouted into a phenomenal tree, bearing fruit for all who lie in need of nourishment to eat. So yes, I am no different than anyone else. Just a young man who was begging for a chance to show all of who he could be. And now, here I stand, the byproduct of far more than just myself. A man with a dream of a legacy that is soon coming into fruition. And yes, I will be a tree in which feeds all of those who are in need. Forget my daughter in the background. She's cute though.
Wow, man. Thank you so much for that performance. What was it like creating a poem about the impact that AVID had on you?
It was a phenomenal experience to be able to write a poem about AVID. I mean, as most people know, I like to write about, things regarding my personal life, and AVID being a program in which is probably the most influential academic program I've ever participated in. It meant a great deal to me to be able to write that back in 2016, 2017, to go present at a school board meeting in Stockton, California, and to now be able to share it with you all.
Thank you so much, man. Man, it's an absolute honor to meet you. So I know life for you has recently changed in two very big ways this year. What's life like being a new father and a celebrity spoken word poet?
I don't know about the celebrity part, but I mean, a lot has happened. Honestly, in the last 9 months, my life has taken many drastic shifts. I have shifted between 3 different job positions, from educator to academic advisor to now full-time artist. My wife and I purchased our first ever home. We had our daughter on leap year day. We got a puppy. I did a nationally syndicated television show, and COVID, all within the last 9 months. So trying to discover new normal is an interesting thing, but it's also an extremely beautiful and humbling experience altogether.
No, I absolutely understand that. It must be a lot of great feelings this year as you kind of embark on these new adventures. Something we teach, or we really try to teach and model to both our educators and our students, is this idea around agency. This notion that if we can find our own voice, then there's no limit to what can happen and what we can achieve. You're such an incredible example of someone who found his own voice. How did this brilliant talent of yours manifest itself in your life?
Yeah, man. I mean, it took time. I was originally just a hoop head. In high school and my early years of college, I played basketball, and that's where I found my identity. But as time went forward, both a combination of investment from mentors, my faith informing me as well, and even my family, I really began to delve into and understand that, you find identity or agency in who you are, and then allow that to guide what you go do, versus finding identity and agency in what you do and allowing that to define who you are. And those two are vastly different, because when you find identity and agency through your own through your own personhood, then everything that you go do is impacted by that, versus having one singular thing that then defines what you do and who you are as a person. And so for myself, my artistry really came into effect when I came to the realization that basketball wasn't the only thing that could define who Brandon was, but instead that I could be the intentional, loving, caring person who, I've been called to be and who I was created to be, no matter what I did. And it just so happened that spoken word was a massive thing in which I was able to find a great deal of that in, and was able to utilize to share my voice.
Yeah, operating in your purpose absolutely gives you a chance to kind of accelerate life forward. I know I'm not the first one to notice this, but you have a knack for combining powerful words to make your lived experiences come to life for others. What is one word or phrase that you live by?
Created to create would probably be the most notable one. I believe that we were all created on purpose and with purpose, so we should live in purpose. And so the idea is that we have an opportunity to make this world a better place through what we create here on this world. And people think of creation as like, oh, I have to go invent something or make something. No, like, we create circumstances, we create peace or joy or love in other people's lives. We create disdain or frustration in other people's lives. What you elect to create with your time here on this earth is a reflection of who you are, but even bigger than that, of the impact in which you will leave on this place. And so I guess that would be the way that I would say is one of my biggest phrases that I live by. Another one that I try to live by too is, if you live by their acceptance, then you'll die by their rejection. It's a quote from a rapper named Lecrae. And I think that too oftentimes people are so concerned with whether or not other people will accept their dreams and their goals that they never chase after them enough. Instead of being like, yo, this is something that I know that I feel an inkling to go do. And until I feel that inkling fade away, I'll pursue it.
Absolutely. I think acceptance was a race that I chased for a long time as I was coming up. And it wasn't until I found that opportunity to kind of look into my purpose and live for what my purpose was, is when I really started to blossom and open up. So I appreciate you sharing those phrases. I think, though, you were probably about in 8th grade when I was a senior in high school. But take us back to those school days. We want to go all the way back to those school days for a moment. What was it like being an AVID, and what did it mean for your future success?
Yeah, I mean, for me, being an AVID was a very intriguing journey, seeing how my original time going to AVID, I wasn't even accepted into the program, because when I had first applied, I was told that my grades were too good to be in there. Seeing how I was like a B and A student around the time. And inevitably, to get into the program, I had to do like an extra interview, write an essay, get letters of recommendation, and all that stuff. And as AVID has continued to grow and change, now it's come to the realization for a lot of our districts that AVID isn't just a program meant for those middle C and B students, but it's instead a program meant for all students. And for myself, AVID gave me this stick-to-itness in which I was able to have to really fight for something pretty much for the first time, because school kind of came easy for me early on. So I didn't necessarily have to like give a great deal of effort to do well. But to have something in which I was like, yo, this is something I want and I have to go fight for it, it taught me something. And to continue to maintain it, because you could get removed from the program if you don't maintain yourself in the program as well. And so like honestly, AVID for me taught me a great deal about how to fight for what you love, how to maintain those things and what you have to do to be able to keep the things that you love, and gave me a great sense of community in the midst of that as well, because my fellow classmates and the teachers who are in the program were all so awesome to be around.
Brandon, you mentioned that this was something that you kind of recognize as an opportunity to kind of fight for something you wanted. What was it about AVID that made it so appealing to you, that made you realize that this was something you had to be a part of?
College prep. I mean, the idea of being able to be as prepared as possible to go to college was something in which was very intriguing to me and attractive to me. I was the first person in my family to attend and graduate from college. And so to be that, AVID was a huge instrument that I was able to utilize to get there, and played an instrumental role in my ability to learn the skill sets to be able to be successful in college, from my study habits to my ability to build relationships and partnerships with fellow classmates and the educators. And my public speaking also grew there because of all the presentations and stuff that we would have to do. And admittedly, I would have never been able to afford college without our local scholarship program that Mrs. Lee out there in good old Stockton, California, helped implement with us to be able to utilize to get school funding.
Yeah, you mentioned public speaking. For me, it was in my AVID class where I was told you don't know how to be quiet, so you need a major in communication, so people will pay you to talk, and it worked out great. So I love that.
There
I
we
love
go.
that. In AVID, we learned how to develop our stage presence, right? So for me, it was my AVID teacher, though. My AVID teacher played a significant or a pivotal role in my life in really interrupting my life and taking me off the path that I was on and putting me onto a path to success. And what I'm curious to discover is, who were those people in your life that supported you along the way, knowing all the while that eventually you would achieve your wildest dreams?
I mean, first and foremost, my mom. I mean, like, her sacrifice at age 19 to say, you know what, I have to give up some of my dreams to be able to make sure that my child will be able to accomplish his. So letting go of college, which was a big aspiration of hers, she sacrificed everything for me, and I will forever be eternally grateful for that. And then, the remainder of my family, from my grandma, my grandpa, my uncle, all these people in which have played instrumental roles in me being able to learn the lessons I needed to learn, growing up as a church kid, all of the church family who surrounded me. And then academically, I mean, probably two of the biggest people who played a role in my life were Mrs. Lee, who was my AVID teacher for my junior and senior year, and who I still have communications with and discussions with over at good old Edison High School. And then another teacher by the name of Rick Capello. He was my English teacher, and I remember he was one of the first people who told me that I had a knack for writing. And it was those subtle things from Mrs. Lee continuing to tell me, like, Brandon, you have so much inside of you. You just have to be willing to give yourself the opportunity to show it and not cheat yourself. And Mr. Capello being able to tell me that, like, this thing that I had only ever done in a classroom setting for real, is something that I should look into and have an idea to pursue, is what spurred me forward a great deal.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have that example of, an educator who identified that one thing in us, or that potential in us, and kind of unlocked it. But even sometimes it could have just been a small phrase or a word of like, wow, you really have a talent, or you're capable of doing this. And it kind of propelled us into this world of pursuing that potential. I'd love to start a movement behind, students going back to their educators and saying, you remember that one day, that one time when you said that to me? Well, this is how it turned out, and it worked out great. And thank you. But there's this little thing, Brandon, that I like to do. It's a little reflective strategy, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of look at our timeline. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, without putting too much thought into it, I want you to think of your lifeline all the way back to your earliest memory up until today when we got to meet. And I want you to think of 3 things you would go back into your life and high five yourself for, 2 things you would whisper to yourself, and 1 thing you absolutely will accomplish in your future.
Yeah, high five myself for not dating that girl in high school. High five myself for being bold enough to actually quit basketball in a time in which so many people questioned that decision. And then high five myself after that first open mic I ever hosted in college, in which I questioned whether or not I should keep going, and I chose to keep going. Whisper in my ear, don't date that other girl that you were thinking about dating. And then the road will get at 22 years old, moving back into my mom's house after graduating from college and losing my job, had to move back to Stockton. I would whisper to myself, the journey just now begins. And one thing I will for sure accomplish is raising an absolutely phenomenal young lady who's going to be way better at everything than I am.
That's awesome, man. I have a 7-year-old girl myself, and every day she says something or comes up with a phrase or gets upset, and I'm like, "How are you me? How are you so much me?" It's a beautiful thing. So I'm excited to that you have that to look forward to in raising your daughter. Um,
Yeah, man. Building the next generation is what you got to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as we build that next generation, there's a lot of avid kiddos across the country who really could use a role model like you. And for the simple fact of that, you not only broken through educational barriers, but also in art and bringing spoken word poetry to mainstream America. I think it, for a lot of people, it was a big surprise, but for a number of people who were familiar with spoken word, were kind of like, yes, absolutely. You can taste what the greatness is. I don't know why you weren't on this game earlier. Right. And so we're eager to discover, what are your plans now? Like, and how can the Avid community in our 2 million plus strong support the next step, the next thing that's coming for Brandon Leake?
Yeah, I mean, my next logical steps are to, of course, like travel around, tour, and take my spoken word on the road. We just got done doing a sold out show in Pleasanton. We're going to Dallas, Arlington, Houston, and San Antonio, Texas. We're going to
You
East
know,
Providence.
Dallas
Huh?
is my hood. Dallas is my city, man. That's where I'm at.
Ah, there we go. So hopefully I'll see you there. I'll be at the Addison Theater out there.
Okay. Yeah, I know the Edison.
And so East Providence, Rhode Island. We're going to Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, and then we're booking Florida and a bunch of other places. So like that part's happening. I'm getting involved in the movie and television realm in terms of script writing and acting and producing and stuff like that. So like keep an eye out for when those things come. But probably one of the most exciting things I'm looking forward to is going back to my hometown in Stockton where I live and being able to implement a lot of the beautiful things that I've been hoping to. Like the neighborhood I grew up in was a massive food desert. And for myself, I'm trying to utilize the speaking engagements that I have to raise funds to be able to buy this old Kmart and start up our first ever Black owned grocery store.
Wow.
So that way we can address that food desert. Because as we address Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if I can make sure that, that bottom tier is taken care of, we can finally utilize my psychology degree to be able to address some of the mental disparities that we're dealing with here in this community. And so doing that, bringing poetry workshops to the youth here in town, so that way we can utilize their writing to help bring healing as we address those, food needs and things like that. I'm just trying to make my neighborhoods healthier. I want to bring a gym to Southeast Side Stockton because there's no place for people to go actually work out. And yet we blame them for having diabetes. We blame them for being overweight. But when you only surround them with fast food and alcohol and over policing and drugs and those things, you're going to inevitably get an unhealthy lifestyle that comes from that. And so trying to bring health and mental wealth to these people, so that way as we can continue to grow, they can develop that into their own generational wealth in whatever fashion they find.
Well, you're probably going to hear this a lot, in your future. You are such an absolute inspiration, man. And it I get excited to hear the plans that you have coming, because not only are you focused on the growth and development of your passion and your opportunities, but immediately after talking about those, you talk about how you're going to turn back around and pour into your community and pour into the kids and pour into these opportunities to give others a platform to kind of elevate and go achieve their dreams. So I think that's absolutely spectacular. Do you have a message for all the Avid students who are still trying to find their way? Like, what's the one thing, if you could tell them, I'm still looking for my way, what could you give them?
My advice to them would be to understand this. Oprah wasn't famous until like she was 40 something. Whoopi Goldberg was still a struggling actress until her late 20s. Tyler Perry was still homeless around 27, 28 years old. And these people are now wildly successful. So it is okay if you do not have it all figured out at this point. Like, it is all right. Don't stress it. you can continue to dream and figure out how those dreams will manifest themselves. All you have to do is make sure that you don't just love what you do, because the love of what you do will push you to continue to do it, but respect what you do enough to study it, improve, and get better at it, whether it be a vocation, an occupation, or just a calling to a particular idea. Just make sure that you give your heart to it. And as you do that, it will never steer you wrong. But I'm no professional at this. So, I mean, what do I know?
Thank you so much for your time and energy, man, and much love and blessings to the families as well. AVID community, I'd love for you to go follow Brandon. We're going to drop his social media in the chat. Thank you so much for your time, man.
And thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. I hope that you all stay blessed, stay healthy, and stay safe during these times. And I'll catch y'all later.